He didn't smile much. He didn't bleed on screen. He whispered his lines like they were sacred secrets, and he broke arms like twigs. For a time in the late 80s and early 90s, Steven Seagal was the most dangerous man in Hollywood. But then, something changed. He went from snapping limbs in blockbuster action flicks to disappearing into a fog of direct-to-video oblivion, Russian politics, and outlandish personal myths. This is the strange, powerful, and truly bizarre journey of a man who seemed unstoppable until he stopped himself. Steven Seagal wasn't supposed to become a movie star. He wasn't classically trained, didn't have matinee idol looks, and lacked the charisma of his action hero peers like Schwarzenegger, Stallone, or Van Damme. But what he did have was a black belt in Aikido, a unique martial art that emphasized redirecting an opponent's energy, and a presence that made people believe he could kill with a whisper. Born in Lansing, Michigan in 1952, Seagal began studying martial arts at a young age. He eventually moved to Japan, where he claimed to be the first foreigner to operate an Aikido dojo. Whether or not that was true, and many have disputed it, the myth worked. In the mid-1980s, he returned to the U.S. and became a martial arts instructor for Hollywood's elite, including agent Michael Ovitz, who helped land him a deal with Warner Brothers. Then came 1988's Above the Law, and the world took notice. With slicked-back hair, a no-nonsense demeanor, and bone-snapping skills, Seagal played Nico Toscani, a former CIA operative turned Chicago cop. He didn't throw flashy spin kicks. He didn't need to. He exuded an almost mystical stillness, cool, calculated, and invincible. Audiences responded. So did studios. Over the next 5 years, he released hit after hit. Hard to Kill, 1990. Marked for Death, 1990. Out for Justice, 1991. Under Siege, 1992. His biggest success, a box office smash that paired him with Tommy Lee Jones aboard a hijacked battleship. Seagal was now a certified action star. But beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. By the mid-1990s, Seagal had become infamous behind the scenes. Stories circulated of him being difficult on set, rewriting scripts to inflate his role, or refusing to show vulnerability. He allegedly insisted on never losing fights on screen and barely being touched in choreographed battles. As co-stars would later reveal, his ego wasn't just large, it was bulletproof. Director John Leguizamo once said Seagal physically shoved him on the set of Executive Decision because he didn't like being questioned. Others recounted bizarre spiritual claims. Seagal reportedly said he was the reincarnation of a Tibetan Lama and had healing powers. By the time On Deadly Ground, 1994 arrived, his directorial debut and box office misfire, critics had turned. The film was heavy-handed, self-serious, and revealed a fatal flaw. Steven Seagal took himself way too seriously. As Hollywood moved on to younger, more dynamic stars, Seagal doubled down on his formula, but audiences didn't follow. Part 3. Straight to Video and Straight to Oddity. The late 1990s marked a turning point. Theaters no longer beckoned. Seagal transitioned into the world of direct-to-video films, a graveyard for fading stars, but instead of slowing down, he accelerated. Between 2001 and 2009, he released over 20 films, often playing near-identical characters with names like Gino, Mason, or Travis. The plots were generic, the acting wooden, and the fight scenes, now relying heavily on body doubles and editing, lacked the raw impact of his early days. Yet Seagal refused to fade quietly. In 2009, he re-emerged not in a movie, but as a reality TV star. Steven Seagal, Lawman, aired on A&E, following Seagal as a reserve deputy sheriff in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. It was bizarrely hypnotic, the ponytailed action hero issuing citations, giving spiritual advice, and speaking fluent cop jargon. While some were intrigued, others questioned whether it was all performance. Was he really a cop? Was it legal for him to arrest people on camera? That same surreal energy would define the rest of his public life. Perhaps the most bizarre turn in Seagal's career didn't happen on screen. It happened in international politics. In the mid-2010s, Steven Seagal became closely associated with Vladimir Putin. He praised the Russian president publicly, called him one of the great world leaders, and even supported Russia's annexation of Crimea, statements that earned him heavy criticism in the U.S. In 2016, Russia granted him citizenship, and Putin personally handed him his new passport. What was going on? Some say Seagal had simply found an audience that still revered his mythos. Russia, Serbia, and parts of Eastern Europe still considered him a warrior philosopher. Others believe he was being used as a political tool, a Western celebrity willing to lend his name and image to legitimize authoritarian regimes. He was also appointed as a special envoy for Russia to the U.S. in 2018. What did that mean? No one could say, but it sounded cool. As the years rolled on, Seagal's image became a patchwork of contradictions. There were lawsuits, sexual harassment claims, violence on set, business fraud allegations. There were constant rumors of temper tantrums, erratic behavior, and spiritual proclamations. He claimed he could dodge bullets, that he trained CIA agents, that he could heal with his hands. Most of these claims were never substantiated. But in the age of the internet, they only added to his myth. Today, Seagal is rarely seen in public. His last films were poorly received. His music career, yes, he plays blues guitar, never took off, and he now lives mostly in Russia. And yet his name still draws attention, often for the wrong reasons. What do we make of Steven Seagal? Was he a misunderstood martial artist? A megalomaniac? A man caught between his self-image and the world's rejection of it? Final analysis. The man who would never lose Steven Seagal's story is not just bizarre, it's Shakespearean. He rose fast, burning with a unique, enigmatic energy. He revolutionized fight scenes with silent confidence and brutal efficiency. He spoke softly, carried a big ego, and demanded the world believe he was the real thing. But in the end, the very traits that made him unique, his refusal to appear weak, his myth-making, his detachment from reality, were the same traits that isolated him. Hollywood loves a comeback story, but Seagal never wanted to come back. He wanted to stay on top forever. The world, however, had moved on, and so he built his own reality, a personal empire of power fantasies, foreign governments, and spiritual declarations. He may never win an Oscar. He may never be celebrated like Stallone or Keanu. But Steven Seagal will always be remembered, not just as an action star, but as an icon of strangeness. A man who never learned how to lose, even when the world stopped playing.